Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video. By the time you see this video, Deadpool and Wolverine will have already released. I know we're all super excited, so to celebrate the movie, I wanted to make Wolverine. Alright, so this file is from Yoast Studios Patreon, and it comes in about 6 different pieces, and the very first thing that I'm going to have to do is fill those big ugly seams that you see on each side of the wings. And to do that, I'm going to be using Elmer's wood filler. For big gaps like these, I like the wood filler in comparison to something like Bondo, because the wood filler just gets into those gaps a lot better and fills it a lot better than Bondo. You have to do a lot less passes. I think I maybe did 2 here, whereas Bondo you may have to do 4, 5. There's really no telling. It's just a lot thicker and a lot easier to work with than Bondo, and it's less toxic. So while we're waiting for that filler to dry, we're going to start priming the helmet, and because it has so much texture on it, we really don't need to do that much sanding. And for the first time, I am going to be trying a method used by Yoast Studios, who, like I said in the beginning, made this helmet, but I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. But what I'm doing here is just a light coat of primer, and then after 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to come back in and do a second coat of primer, but it'll be heavier. And then after 5 or 10 more minutes, I will come in and do a third coat of primer. By the time I was done priming the helmet, the filler was more than dry, so I went in with this little sponge. I love these little sponges. I have quite a few of them of different grits. This one was kind of a smoother one, but as you can see, it was pretty easy just to kind of go in and smooth the filler out, and I kept dropping it for some reason. I don't think that's the only time I do it in this video. Oh, there it is again. I don't know why I kept dropping it, but just kind of going over and making sure everything was nice and smooth, and making sure I didn't need to do another filler coat thing. Oh, and these little back sections of these wings will be very, very slightly visible, so I went ahead and I filled those as well, and I'm gonna sand them and paint them as I do the rest of the mask section of the build. Alright, now that that's done, I'm gonna move on to sanding the entire mask with my Ryobi mouse sander. I start out at something like 60 grit, 80 grit, 120 grit, 180 grit. Just kind of depends on how I feel on that particular day and how well the print actually came out. And now that I'm sitting here editing this, I'm kind of wondering why I even did the last step when I could have just did this all along. But anyway, from my experience, the most crucial step to getting a super smooth finish is the Bondo step, and what I like to do is mix equal parts of Bondo and acetone together. You get kind of like a paint-like texture, I guess, and you essentially paint that over the entire print. And what the acetone does is it allows it to dry. Well, it's easier to apply with the acetone, but it also allows it to dry a lot quicker. And just in doing one side, so like right now I'm doing this right side of the mask, and then when I move on to the left, by the time I finish the left, the right will already be dry, and then I can go over that again with a second pass, and then, you know, give it 10 minutes, and then you can start sanding on this, and you really don't need to do anything else much after that except for prime it again. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, because now we're going to go back and sand all of this back smooth. As you can see, I'm going to use that little sponge again. And this makes pretty quick work of everything. And another thing I wanted to add is that you can see the little grooves in the mask. I do go back with a file. You can actually see it off to the right-hand side there, right under my arm. But I do go back and I kind of carve out those grooves again, just so I don't, and I keep dropping the sponge for some reason, but I go back with that file and just kind of carve out all those grooves again, just to make sure that the primer and the Bondo doesn't kind of fill them in, and I do that after every step. So in working with the mask, it's given the helmet portion enough time to dry. So this is kind of the process that I was talking about from Yo Studios that I'm going to go back in. This is 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to go in and wet sand, just a little bit, nothing too difficult, but I'm going to go in and wet sand the entire helmet, and then I'm going to hit it with primer again here in a minute. Right now. I do spray each part a little bit differently. The mask portion, I kind of do little lighter coats at first, just like I did for the helmet, and then, once that's dry, I'll go back with heavier coats. But the helmet itself, I just immediately go with heavy coats, just because that's what I did. I did go back off camera and do the heavier coats, but now everything is getting a pass with this 400 grit sandpaper, and it's going to get a wet sand. This is going to be the final step of both the mask and the helmet. So we're just going to wet sand it like we did earlier. So we're finally getting into painting, and for this helmet section, I used the same exact yellow that I used on my Cyclops visor build from X-Men 97. If you didn't see that video, I'm going to put it down in the description. Go check it out. But this is I want to say it was a yellow ginger is what it was called by Rust-Oleum. And I did light coats on this at first, and then I went back in with a heavier second coat. And because this helmet had all those little grooves in it, it did take probably 3 or 4 coats to kind of get it to where I liked it. But as you can kind of see here on the front, it kind of left a little bit of, the color, the gray color showing through. Kind of looks blackish, but it kind of adds to the weathering effect that we're going to do later on in the video. There's also this little chin piece that I did the same exact sanding and priming method as I did with the helmet, but this piece is just straight black, so I just hit this with a black Rust-Oleum, and this took probably about 2 coats. The mask itself is kind of a special case because all the promo images that we have of it, it looks black, but it's actually not. It's a really, really dark navy blue, almost dark to the point where it looks black, but when you actually really look at it, kind of like the Hot Toys promotional images of Wolverine, and then some other more close-up images of the mask, you can really tell that it's this navy dark blue color, especially around the eyes. You can tell the eyes are actually black, and there is a little bit of a slight difference between the rest of it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to paint everything black first, and then after that we're going to hit it with a navy blue, but we're going to kind of mist it. We're not going to necessarily put multiple coats of the navy blue on. The blue I used here is a True Navy by Rust-Oleum, and it looks a lot more blue than it actually is in person here in this shot, but in the next shot you'll actually see what I mean by it's almost, you almost can't tell that it's blue. I'm now going to go in with a brush and paint the eyes black, but here's where you could really tell that misting that blue the way I did was the way to go, because from this image you can't really even tell that that's blue. But from this image you can really tell that the blue and the black contrast really well, and this is probably the part of the build that made me the most nervous because I'm a stickler for accuracy, and I was even thinking about maybe trying to mix my own blue color and spraying it with a gun, but this came out just excellent. Next up, we need to weather the actual helmet, and I mixed a little bit of brown with some black because I didn't want it just straight black, but this is my favorite way to weather now. It's through an airbrush. I feel like it just gives you a more realistic look than just a brush does, but as you can see, I just spray a little bit onto the helmet and then I wipe it off with a paper towel, and I might do this 2 or 3 times, or just, until I'm happy with the result. If you get the wash in an area you don't really want it, or you just get the wash built up a little bit more than you want, you could just use the tip of a paintbrush with a little bit of water on it and just go in and kind of break it up and remove it, and this works really well. And the last thing I'm going to do with the helmet is use this wash by Vallejo and just kind of go in and line the lines, I guess. Just to kind of bring them out a little bit more than the actual wash with the airbrush did. And again, if there's any areas that you think came out a little bit too dark, a little bit too heavy, you could just go in with that water tip paintbrush and just kind of take some of that away. I didn't get it on video, but I also went in with this panel liner and hit the lines of the wing section of the mask. Alright guys, hope y'all really enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to hit the subscribe button for future videos just like this one. And while you're down there, leave a like. So hope you guys are back for the next video. The next video is actually going to be Keimer from the Acolyte. So if you're a Star Wars fan, make sure you stick around. And see you guys next time. Bye.